Thank you very much, Madam Presiding Officer and esteemed members of this House. Today, Madam Presiding Officer, I rise with great pride and full support for the fiscal measures as outlined in the budget presentation laid in this House for the first time by a Tobago woman for fiscal year 2025-2026. Madam Presiding Officer, that budget presentation, as presented by Councillor and Secretary for Finance, Trade and Economy, was not merely an account of figures and allocation. It was actually a very bold articulation of vision, of discipline, and responsiveness to the needs of our people. This, Madam Presiding Officer, is a people-centered budget. It is a Tobago-centered budget. It is a budget that reflects the heartbeat of our island and the rhythm of our collective aspirations. From the very onset, Madam Presiding Officer, this administration committed itself to building stronger, more resilient Tobago, one that is economically, socially, and institutionally strengthened. Today, Secretary Roberts has demonstrated that our commitment has not wavered one bit. She presented a financial plan that balances pragmatism with ambition, one that confronts the realities of our current economic climate, which boldly invests in Tobago's transformation, from youth development to tourism revitalization, from housing expansion to food security. This budget reflects, reveals that we care about every single household, every single community, every single child. But Madam Presiding Officer, as we heard at the opening of the debate today, and as we heard from the member for Darrell Spring Wim, you know, we could practically predict the speech. I mean, it's perhaps written from PNM GPT. And so it has been regurgitated for the last 4 years. And if we listen to the member opposite, one will swear that the PNM now come. One will swear that the party was just founded this morning. One would swear that somehow they are now for the first time projecting on Tobago things that should be done to alleviate the pain, the problems, the challenges we face as an island. But you see, PNM is synonymous with hypocrisy. And if hypocrisy has a color, it will be red. Because one will not imagine that they had 21 unbroken years, including the fact that during that time, they had one term, full term, where they controlled every single seat in this House. And during that time, for only once, there was a different government in Port of Spain. And yet, the member comes today positing and posturing as though magically they did not exist, trying to erase history, rewrite it, and pretend as though we should accomplish every single thing they failed to accomplish in 21 years in 3.5 years. Let's do the math. It's 21 versus 3.5 years. And if we compare the 21 to 3.5 years, this administration has done significantly better than their 21 years. And I will show you that in a while. But I want to correct some misinformation. I am not sure who advised the member opposite on how we went about calculating GDP, or even how GDP is calculated. Because it's evident that the goodly gentleman does not know. And I will assume that someone with postgraduate studies in international relations would have done economics. I did international relations, and economics is actually one of the areas you have to cover under international relations, both micro and macro and international political economy. You must cover it. And so the golden member, I don't want to believe, deliberately misled the House and the people of Tobago, but he should be aware of how GDP is calculated. Madam Presiding Officer, the minority leader attempted to question the validity of the GDP data presented in the budget statement. It's overly surprising that he would take such a position when this is the same methodology which has been used since 2011 when his party was in power. In other words, we have not changed the arithmetic. We have not changed the methodology. They use the same methodology to calculate GDP. So how come it was right then, from 2011 to December 2021, and all of a sudden, the same arithmetic is wrong now for calculating GDP? Remember I told you P&M equals hypocrisy. The same methodology. The estimates of gross domestic product for Tobago are generated using a hybrid strategy developed by two former senior employees of the Central Statistical Office with extensive experience in calculating the national GDP, who worked collaboratively with the staff of the Economic Management and Research Unit at the Division of Finance. The minority leader, he didn't have any issue in the previous years. In fact, they campaigned on those GDP growths that they had in the previous years. In fact, sometimes he comes here and attempts to compare our growth to their growth. But today we use the same method to calculate, and it's wrong today, but it was right yesterday. This strategy accounts for the unique data infrastructure and challenges facing Tobago by combining the three approaches to calculate GDP. Expenditure method, where administrator data is available. Income method for non-market output sectors. And output production method, where a representative sample can be effectively surveyed via the survey of business establishments. So it's a combination of those three. And that is reasonable, Madam Presiding Officer. The minority leader gave the impression that it is only data from the survey of business establishment that was used to calculate GDP. And that is not true. That is incorrect. But again, if you cannot understand it, you cannot cross it, Madam Presiding Officer. And one should not be surprised, because what we have been getting from a loud and mostly inarticulate minority across the island is a sense that perhaps after 44 years of the THA being here in Tobago, that many people miss a lot of days in school. And that people who are functionally illiterate somehow are given a soapbox to mouth off without understanding facts and understanding how things work. You are supposed to be the alternative government, and you don't even know how the GDP is calculated. First major error, first untruth peddled. And then the member opposite proceeded to say, well, here know how much the debt is. And it's interesting because he made a lot of talk about contractors not being paid. What he has not said to the people of Tobago are the contractors that they did not pay, that they now want us to find a way to pay off all in a jiffy. It's not we that contract them, They contracted them. They did not pay them and want them to be paid off in total immediately. So let me repeat what the figures are. Because in January 2022, in fact, on the 7th of January 2022, at a special sitting in this house, I stood here and I gave quite clearly what the liabilities at that time was for the people of Tobago. And that liability, Madam Presiding Officer, let me read it again. And hopefully the Minority Council could write them down. And we could add it up. As at January 7, 2022, total liabilities, and this is development liabilities. This does not include liabilities for gratuities or liabilities on the recurrent side. This is development liabilities. Stood at $737,321.55. That's the first big number. The second, Madam Presiding Officer, is that the THA have a bond financing arrangement for which in a few years from now, we have to find in bulk to pay off in one go, not piece, in one go, $215,820,605.64. And that debt is also a development expenditure debt, generated debt. And so when we add those two figures together, Madam Presiding Officer, we get a total inherited development debt of $953,887,927. In fact, I said in January of 2022 that our debt fell just below $1 billion. The media took it and said our debt was $1 billion. But the truth is, if we had to add our recurrent debts to it, the overtime, the gratuity, the increments, things that we owe light bill. And I heard talk in the space about the light bill and health. You know how much was inherited light bill at Shaw Park Complex? $10 million. $10 million. When I came into office, I had to via monies. And the Secretary of Finance was then the management accountant, and she could bear me witness. When I came into office, at the close of the first financial year, I had to via money like crazy from Farmland Development Program to pay off the phone bill in OCS. Unpaid. Unpaid. But again, I'm showing you, Madam Presiding Officer, and the people of Tobago, how P&M equals hypocrisy. The member came and he attempted to present a manifesto of sorts. And I wish perhaps he had leaned on the strength of the member closest to him on the left, because he might have been able to produce something more substantial insofar as a dream or an ambition for Tobago. At least we would have get that. He spoke about moving contracted teachers to the establishment if they get back in power. So what happened for 21 years? I was a contracted teacher for 7 years. I did assessment from the Teaching Service Commission, passed with flying colors. After 2 years, your assessment is null and void. Guess what? No establishment done, work done. None. But you know what? Since I became Chief Secretary, there are members who worked with me in Speyside High who are now on the establishment since I became Chief Sec. So clearly there has been movement. And let me give you a big one. When Mrs. Pasal Bissessa was Prime Minister the first time, Harmon School of SDA became government assisted. Madam Presiding Officer, it pains me to say that we came into office in 2021 and not a single work done to move them on the establishment. Yet we had a PNM Prime Minister, a PNM Chief Secretary, and they could not get cabinet. They could not get cabinet to move them on the establishment. You know what has happened to people at Harmon's? Many of them have gone past 45, and now it is a question of asking the cabinet to waive that prohibition in our regulations, to allow for them to enter the service, because it has been unfair to them. The vice principal at Harmon's, the principal, you know they've been paid as contracted officers. We had to make up names for contracts and contract terms for them to this day. And yet the member comes here and behaves as though they were never in office. They didn't care about contracted teachers then. Then he spoke about scholarship support. We have spent more money in 3.5 years than any previous PNM government in 4 years on scholarships. And I say that out of your favor, that is for beating 21. At present, our figure is $16,425,394.27 to the cent. And you know what is interesting? The allocation that we get every year for scholarship support, tertiary support, is $500,000. So we have placed support for capital development. And you know why this figure has to be so high? Because the same PNM government, and perhaps it's because the former Prime Minister hated patrimony, why he closed the gate. And so many of our students are no longer getting access to free tertiary education across the region. We have been filling the gap. University of Tobago, Madam Presiding Officer, there was once a plan for University of Tobago in Boku. Now horse does graze and run there. The former chief secretary, longest serving chief secretary on this island, said Tobago don't have enough people for university. When People's Partnership wanted to compulsory acquire the lands in Louisdor for university up there, they said we don't have enough people. All of a sudden they know about university. But yet to ignore the fact that we have university operations up at Kendall Farm School through TARI. Rebranded as Tobago Agricultural Research Institute, because our mandate was to have university or tertiary education operate as a satellite type of operation all across the island. You could get your degree, you could do postgraduate work up at Kendall Farm School, accredited by the University of Trinidad and Tobago. We have introduced that, not PNM. School repairs. Madam Presiding Officer, it's laughable. Last year, the government he supported in Trinidad spent $20 million for the whole of Trinidad on school repair. For hundreds of schools. You know how much we spent? $20 million as well. And we hadn't even reached 100 proper. In total, over 3.5 years, we have spent $100 million on school repairs, more than any other administration has done. That is 4 verses 21. Gratuity payments, well, it's a big one. At education alone, Madam Presiding Officer, and I want contracted teachers to hear. Because up to this day, education still a gratuity for me. And it's because I don't want to be selfish. He who must lead must first serve. And I want people to go and get their money. Meanwhile, in education for my money, let people go and get their money. I know like the former Prime Minister who said my money shouldn't sleep out. Let mine sleep out. Once Tobagoans get in theirs, mine could sleep out. Gratuity payments over these 3.5 years. 4 verses 21. We have spent to date at education $169,506,888 $824.51. Almost 170 million spent on gratuity payments, more than any other administration. And what is interesting, Madam Presiding Officer, most of this debt is inherited. Yes. This is not accrued over 4 years. This is accrued over 21 years of P&M collecting allocations to gratuities and not paying the teachers the gratuities. We have been paying it off. Right now, Madam Presiding Officer, when it comes to increments, same teachers, those on the establishment, again, we have paid more than any other administration in 4 years. We have paid to date $88,235,775.75 on increments. To date, increments daily left behind. And right now, we just have outstanding increments of $4,840,858.19. Madam Presiding Officer, they're trying hard to compare 21 to 4. And at every model, every matrix they use, it shows that our 4 is superior to their whole 21. Those are the facts. I am surprised the member will come here and talk about zipline to save tourism. I'm glad he's ziplining himself out of here. Because if he's honest, he will tell the people of Tobago that after spending $4 million for zipline, we still don't have all the parts of the zipline on island. We have so much a rope, we could tie out every boat, tie out every cow, tie out every goat, tie out every sheep, and still have more rope left. And what he will not say is that parts of the zipline were left in storage up in Miami, storage never paid for, storage seized, and so to do a zipline, you have to start from scratch. And that's why I'm insistent that the people who were paid the $4 million for the zipline pay we back with money. And the only people on island supporting the people who spirited away, to use their word, our $4 million for zipline we never got is the P&M. Yes. Unpatriotic. And then you talk about agricultural zoning. Do you know what agricultural zoning? When we were cutting down cocoa fields left, right, and center to build all kind of things, they were considering agricultural zoning. When we were putting houses in areas that had excellent irrigation and excellent for farming and crop production, were they considering agricultural zoning? For 21 years. In 4 years, under 4 years, it was 3.5. But in under 4 years, you know what we have done? Tractor Pool have the biggest intake of equipment, new equipment. The long outstanding backlog at Tractor Pool has been reduced because of this administration. We have people waiting for 10, 11 years to get a tractor to come by them. We fix that. We fix that. They left the mess. We fix it. And then you talk about the Scarborough Development Plan. Madam Presiding Officer, when the Honorable Member for Scarborough, Color Hall, and the team at Infrastructure did all the modeling, they did the testing, they did the design work, we did consultations publicly, we did consultations virtually, we did consultations in person, we met with stakeholders, and they came up with the brief. I took my time. I took resources. And even when I was at the Division of Finance then, Division of Finance photocopier run out of ink, I came by a stationery supply store neighboring here and spent my own money to pay for the rest of copies. And I sent copies of the report and the design to the Prime Minister, to the Minister of Finance, to the Minister of Planning, to the Minister of Works and Infrastructure, to the Minister of Tourism, to the Minister of Digital Transformation, every one of them. Public Utilities, every one of them. I know what the then Prime Minister did. He came up to Mason Hall and said, Farley sent him 10 pounds of paper. He ain't reading that, and the only development he's supporting in Tobago is Marriott. But you know why, Madam Presiding Officer? Because the people in Mariota Pata is 1% friends. So if they come from your 1% friends,
Member, you have 5 minutes.
If it ain't come from your 1% friends, PNM can't support it. We sent it to them. We made the request. Tender notices went out, Madam Presiding Officer. And all that was required was for the central government to give a commitment insofar as a sovereign guarantee. Couldn't even get a yes or a no. Couldn't get a yes or a no. But today, all of a sudden, you know that there is a Scarborough development plan. And talk about digital transformation. Digital transformation, Madam Presiding Officer. We had a whole ministry for digital transformation. And it was an epic failure. Epic failure. A set of promises from a Tobagonian at that. And I might say so-called Tobagonian. It didn't realize in Tobago up to now. As a matter of fact, what they have done is attempted to stall every digital work we have done. If Miss, the Minority Council should be aware of it, we did all the work, completed all the work, reduced the number of bank accounts down to 4, prepared for complete digital financial transformation. Guess what? Ministry of Finance sit down and say, nah, all the whole, we ain't going yet. We then had at Health, where we were preparing to move all our social services digital, meaning you don't have to come into the office to get a grant or to even apply. You come to your phone. You could go and shop with your phone. Digital. We were working with the UNCDF and the TTIFC. You know what happened? The ministry in Trinidad tell them, don't work in Tobago whole. Tobago can't be more advanced than Trinidad. So that got stopped because of them. And they're talking about digital transformation. This government has moved our tendering process to complete digital platform, the only part of the country that is ensuring that all our procurement, our tendering is digital. And then, of course, he spoke about sports. And while God didn't bless me with athletic abilities, I was the vice president of Saidis Football Club. And I was the president of Saidis Football Club for well over 10 years. One of the top clubs on the island. You could ask the member for Lambo how much licks they used to get. He used to coach a team two teams between Lambo and Signal Hill. And Madam Presiding Officer, you know how much games I got to and game I had to put off? You know how much times I took my parents' paint from the house to mark line on the field in Speyside? You know how much nets I bought myself? So this is a long-standing issue. And it's not even because of who sits in the seat. I met with the administrator and the directors at sport a week or two ago. And when you listen to where their headspace is at, you will understand why this happens on our field. Issues of productivity. People coming to work, leaving early, and not delivering on what should be delivered. That's not new. And when motorsport is concerned, I'm happy to say to the member that we have already identified and we have already shown the Motorsport Association the lands for the circuit down at Friendship. This administration also has given the Motorsport Association an unfettered access without charge to parade ground any day of the week once it is not required by another agency or NGO to use for motorsport. And it is this administration that has facilitated for the last 2 to 3 years the closure of the Belmont Road for motorsport in Tobago. We have done more for motorsport. In fact, PNM didn't even consider it a sport. Interesting. And so, Madam Presiding Officer, with the time left, there are a few other things I wish to share. One, we have had no end of obstruction from the central government. And I hear, remember, about 32 million. And if anybody had asked me, and I say to you, whether I am satisfied, whether I feel it is enough, my answer will be no. And I've already said, from the Prime Minister coming right down, that
Member, your time has expired.
Madam Presiding Officer. My mic was on.
Leader of Assembly Business.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I beg to move that the speaking time of the member for Palatavia Lansamy Speyside be extended by a further 10 minutes.
Honourable members, the question is that an additional speaking time of 10 minutes be given to the member. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Any against say no. The ayes have it. Please continue. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, members. And I assume the member for Roxborough, that Argyle was also trying to afford me some extra time too. So let me thank you for the very noble efforts, member. Thank you very much, my brother. Madam Presiding Officer, I was at the point of talking about the 32 million, and I was saying, if you ask anybody on this side whether we think the 32 million plus the 100 million from CAF is sufficient, we will tell you no. Because Tobago's development needs are so great that we have to be funded at a rate above every district in Trinidad in order for us to catch up. We want miracles in tourism. Our nearest competitor, Barbados, and we just saw the news where our tourism agents are working with Barbados with the flight from Germany with Condor. Barbados right next door, spending a minimum of 40 million US every year on just marketing alone. We're not even spending 10 million US on marketing. In fact, we're not even getting that. We're not even getting 10 million US to run the whole of Tital. Let me be fair. How Barbados could put their ads on shirts in Wimbledon, on jerseys in Premier League. To that visit to Rwanda you see when you're watching Premier League, that alone, Madam Presiding Officer, costs millions of pounds per year. Millions. Not even TT, pounds. And that is what we must compete with a budget that would give us between 30 and 40 million TT dollars to run the whole operations, including paying staff and doing marketing. You're talking about going world travel market. I wish Tobagonians could come. And Secretary for Tourism, I am putting out an invitation this year for the minority to send somebody with us to World Travel Organization. I want them to come and see for themselves. Come and see for themselves. Because, Madam Presiding Officer, if they come and see who we stand up against, how countries with even smaller economies than ours have boots that bigger than ours. And I say, well, how would they pay for that? And when we go down, we have to beg Trinidad to come on board. Some years Trinidad tell us, we will join you. And when we reach airport, we hear Trinidad not coming again. That is what we face. And then the member is talking about contractors, and I'll say that finally before I'll touch on some important points on OCS. Talk about contractors and decimating the contract sector. We have not done that, you know. Dishonesty has done that. Because I'm insistent that we will only pay only what we owe. And I've seen the member publicly champion a particular contractor who for this day had the equipment seized by the court for illegal quarrying, carry the same corrupt waste from Tobago to Trinidad and get catch. That is who the member opposite associates himself with. But Madam Presiding Officer, across at OCS, we have been advancing digitization for the entire THA. Our operations at the executive level is almost completely digital. A firm was engaged that is digitizing the records of the THA as we speak. And within 3 months, we will get to the point where all meetings, all the engagements can actually happen electronically. And that simple things like exec council notes can be submitted approved, confirmed electronically. We are on the verge of launching the development pathway. It was approved. We came into office on the basis of building out the greatest little island on the planet. We sat with those 12 principles of the greatest little island on the planet. We consulted with internal clients of the THA and built out the development pathway. The website will be launched towards the end of this month so that we can now bring into the conversation the rest of Tobago. And let me show you 4 verses 21. We did not get our first development plan from the PNM until they were in the 2nd term in office. Tobago is going to get the development pathway from us in our 1st term in office that will cover Tobago for 20 years. And not only that, the CDP 2.0 expired since about 2016. They were in office for about 5 or 6 years after it expired. Not a single plan in 1 term, we're providing it. With regards to land management, which the member raised, we inherited over 400 applications at land management, just there. State Land Committee just did not review. We have been reviewing them, we have been doing interviews, and we have been placing people. The challenge remains access to surveyors. In fact, we did put out an ad for surveyors to apply for work within land management, and we did not get any hits. The surveyors who are there are junior surveyors, and they are not licensed. They are not licensed to even go out on the field without a senior. That's the situation of what we have. And so we have 1 senior surveyor from the island that we have contracted, who is there working with the junior surveyors trying to catch up with the backlog. But why do we have 400 unaddressed ones? And yet it got to say that the person applied a long time and waiting. So not even during our tenure, the person applied. Before we came into office, the person applied. We are also looking at our HR issues. And we are hoping the government can fix issues with the CPO. Because it cannot be right that we have positions approved by cabinet since 2004, still waiting to be classified. One of which is a deputy clerk of the House, classified since 2004. Several from across in the Division of Food Security, classified since 2004, up to this point. Sorry, not classified, approved by cabinet since 2004. And up to now, cannot be classified. The member opposite and his friends have made very heavy weather about some ambulances on the island. And I want to address that before I close. Because many people don't understand how the procurement system works. As a matter of fact, I can tell you and tell Tobagonians that since this thing happened, way back when, and I was asked in this house whether I am doing an investigation, it's not for me to investigate. The instruction went to the TRHA since that time to send all of the procurement documents to the Office of the Procurement Regulator. Let the Office of the Procurement Regulator make a determination as to whether the procurement process was good or bad. That is where it needs to go. They are the ones that must do the investigation. But you see, what people don't understand about procurement is that a secretary, a member of the executive, we don't have any say in the procurement, you know. We have no say whatsoever. Only a named procurement officer and the accounting officer for the division have a say. And if, as an executive, we say, go buy 5 bales of toilet paper, they could just go out and buy the cheapest. And if they buy the cheapest, people have to reel out 5 or 10 times more for it to be efficient. And they end up running out faster. We can't go and tell the procurement people, well, we don't want this cheap brand that is not efficient, buy this brand, it's better. We can't even tell them what type to buy. Them just do what they do. We could send them the scope, they tender, and they go with it. And then we on the back end must blindly hope that what they in fact tendered for and what they have in fact procured meets the needs that we have for the people of the island. and hope to God that they align. That's just reality. And me ain't getting involved in no procurement. You could ask, I dare you to ask any procurement officer if this chief sec ever come to them for any favor. Not one. Not one. Anybody set line. Not one. I want to know the number. Me, I want to sit down and meet with them. I don't even want to line with them. And if I know your procurement officer and I see you outside liming there, I'm liming over so. Because nobody going to call my name with procurement. But that's the reality of the procurement regime that we have. But these are those same ambulances, as efficient as the minority leader says they are, there will come a day when those same ambulances will have to tote him up to Scarborough Hospital because he would lose and lose again bigly as he lost on April the 28th.
Thank you, member. Your time has expired.